Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Ben. Welcome back to the channel. We are living out of the Troopy on day 10 now, and we're parked here in the Willamette National Forest in Central Oregon. The way I'm looking is vast, empty blue sky that gets especially dark overnight, and that is perfect for us because this weekend is the Perseid meteor shower. And I am super stoked to be posted up here in this beautiful dispersed campsite with clear views of the sky. It should be an epic show tonight. But what I wanted to do in this video here is cover two things. I wanted to talk about how the heck we got here, living out of our Troopy on the road full time, and where the heck we're going. Because I know a lot of you have questions about this crazy thing that sort of came out of nowhere. So let's pull up a chair and get right into it. So I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, partially because I know that I haven't been doing a very good job of making videos and keeping you all updated, partially because some things just happened so fast that I didn't even get time to really wrap my head around them myself, and partially because I've been getting a lot of questions and comments about how the heck did we end up here living out of the Troopy full time, and where are we going? What's the plan? So bear with me. I haven't planned this out. I haven't scripted it. I figure I'll just shoot from the hip and talk from the heart. And if I start rambling, hopefully I can edit it in post. But I wanted to share with you the story of how we got here. And to do that effectively, I'm going to go back a little bit. It was over a decade at this point ago, probably 2012, when I first found out about the Pan American Highway and these intrepid travelers that were traversing the entirety of North and South America, usually as a vehicle-supported expedition, sometimes on two wheels without a motor by bicycle, sometimes on 2 feet, but a lot of times in a 4x4. And I was just enamored by the scale of the expedition, by the idea of doing something so big and so scary that it just seems insane. And I thought of the incredible variety of people that you would get to meet on a trip like that and the stories that you would bring home to be able to share with your loved ones. And I said, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I knew somehow, some way, I would figure out at some point in my life how to make that dream a reality. And so the next decade really was planning, learning, saving money, most importantly probably, and building towards that dream. Really, if I were to break down key decisions that I made over the last decade, they were all in support of this as the end goal, as my North Star. Even getting the Forerunner, taking it on the weekend trips, taking it on the multi-week, multiple state trips, and some of the bigger sort of expeditions that I did with it, all the learning about self-reliance in the outdoors and self-recovery, and everything has been pointed towards this goal. And it wasn't until probably 2021 or so when I really felt like I could start to put a timeline around when I would execute this goal and when I would achieve it. And in my mind, back then, it was probably a handful of years away. I was targeting sort of late 2024, early 2025 as when I felt like I would have the savings account to the place I wanted it to be. I would be able to have the vehicle that I wanted and the build that I wanted and feel really prepared to do an expedition like this. As luck would have it, the world had other ideas. You know, at so many points along this decade of dreaming about the Pan American Highway, the plan has changed and pivoted, whether from a career change or a global pandemic or a breakup. There have been lots of shifts and adjustments to this plan. But come 2021, I started to hone in on this idea that it'd be achievable within the next handful of years. And that's when I really started thinking about what the perfect vehicle for me on the Pan American Highway would be. And I had a couple of simple requirements, I guess, for what this vehicle should be like. And those requirements pretty quickly showed me that the 4Runner was not the perfect vehicle for the Pan American Highway. As much as I loved that 4Runner, I just knew that it wasn't going to be able to sustain the long-term travel the way that I had envisioned it because of a lack of interior living space and a couple of other things. But let's lay out that list of requirements. I just gave away the first one. The first big one was interior living space of some sort. I didn't need it to be a Sprinter van or one of these big Unimog expedition trucks, although I also didn't discount those right away either. All I knew was that when you're doing the weekend warrior type trips that I was doing in the 4Runner, it's very easy to pick and choose the good weather and follow the sunshine. When you're living out of your rig full time and doing the Pan American Highway, going through Central America, not able to pick and choose the good weather the way you might like, it's just a surefire bet that you're going to run into inclement weather and long stretches of inclement weather. And for me, the way to make long-term travel sustainable in spite of inclement weather is to have some sort of comfortable interior living space. So if it's pouring rain out here and it's going to be pouring rain for the next 2 days, I know that I can be fairly comfortable and pretty well occupied in here. I've got a place I can sit upright and work. I can stand upright and change my clothes and clean myself. Is it a Ritz-Carlton? By no means, obviously not. But it is adequate enough to have some interior living space so that you don't go completely stir crazy in that type of situation. Another really important thing for me when considering a vehicle for the Pan American Highway, and I don't really know why this was so burned in my mind, but it was constantly at the forefront of my mind, the ability to get from where I'm sleeping to the driver's seat without exiting the vehicle. I guess it is coming from a place of like personal safety or something like that. I don't know how realistic the scenario is, but for whatever reason, it was top of mind for me to want to be able to go from where I'm sleeping to the driver's seat and be in gear and ready to drive without having to set foot outside. So obviously the 4Runner with the rooftop tent didn't accommodate that. You have to climb out of the tent, you gotta get in the driver's seat. But here I can go straight from the alu cab to the driver's seat without getting outside. That may be for when a park ranger or police officer comes to knock on my window and let me know that I'm camped in the wrong spot and it's not allowed and I need to just move up the road. It could be when animal encounters get a little too close for comfort. It could be when people encounters get a little too close for comfort and I've got to get out of a potentially unsafe situation. Who knows, but that was an important requirement for me. The third thing that I was really focused on finding for the vehicle was something that was pretty mechanically simple and reliable that I could learn how to wrench on myself, because the self-reliant aspect of an expedition like this is hugely important to me. I know there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's an eventuality that I will be in the backcountry and have a breakdown. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know where it's going to happen, but I need to be prepared for that eventuality. And I think the Troopy, with the 3F, the inline six, the just dumb, simple mechanical nature of it, really checks that box for me. It's not full of all the sensors and computers that modern vehicles have. So it's simple enough that Joe Schmo like me can figure out how to wrench on it pretty reliably. And then the final thing on this list of requirements here was sort of the availability of vehicles and parts like the one that I would be in along the route. And so for me, again, the Troopy really checks that box because it is the most ubiquitous vehicle around the world. I mean, the UN uses them, the Red Cross uses them, municipalities up and down Latin America use them, certainly on other continents as well. Pretty much everywhere but the United States gets the Troop Carrier or the 70 series in some fashion. And so that means parts and mechanics and knowledge and donor vehicles, should I need them, are going to be pretty well available outside of the United States. And so I feel really, really good about that. So 2021 gets here. I start feeling like this thing is achievable. and that the timeline is really within a handful of years, I hone in on what the ideal vehicle for me is going to be, and I start searching. And we're talking Google search alerts, Craigslist alerts, constantly, just scouring the internet for vehicles until December 2022, this one popped up, and it was exactly what I wanted. Left-hand drive, petrol engine, rust-free, coming from the Middle East, and the price was in my budget. So I pulled the trigger, went home for the holidays, the money changed hands, the keys changed hands, and she became mine. When I got back to California to start what I thought was going to be the slow build, right? I'm thinking 2025 timeline. That means I've got all of 2023 and most of 2024 to really do this build, get it dialed in, and get it ready for an expedition. But as you all are well aware at this point, when I try to execute a plan that I think is a pretty good plan, it finds some way of imploding in my face. And for me, that was the company I'm working for struggling with the global macroeconomic conditions and ending up having to find a way to gracefully wind things down. So I get home, I've got my brand new truck. I'm talking about how I'm so excited to pour my money and time into building it over the next couple of years. And then in March, I find out that, actually, you're probably not going to have a job for that much longer because we got to shut the company down. And that for me was really sort of a moment of almost existential crisis, right? What do I do from here? Do I go and find another job and put in a couple more years and pad the savings account a little bit more and then go do this? Or do I try to expedite my own personal timeline and pull things in, which is obviously what I ended up doing. And that was really driven by the fact that I'm someone who just loves to work. When I'm solving a cool problem with great people, I want to throw myself into it. And that means it's hard for me to find time to take vacation days. It means that probably what would happen is I would find a cool new company that I would absolutely love working for, and my 2025 timeline would get pushed out a couple more years until I felt like that problem was solved or at a place where I could leave it in someone else's hands. And so I think I sort of just knew myself well enough to know that it was now or never. And so I found out in March that I probably had somewhere on the order of 4 to 5 months to help support the transitioning of the company to whatever came next and figure out what my own personal plan looked like. And so pretty quickly I made the decision that it was going to be now or never. And over those last couple of months, the pure chaos of trying to pull this build together on an extremely expedited timeline, trying to figure out my own plan, and still, working full time with no real end date in sight. It was sort of like, well, there's a lot that goes into winding down a company. We don't totally know when it'll happen, but you've got to be around until the end. It wasn't really until the middle of June or late June that I got confidence in the fact that timeline would sort of be late July or early August at the very latest. And that's when I made the decision to really go through that one-way door and tell my landlords, hey, it's going to be my last month. Here's my 30-day notice. I'm going to move out at the end of July. And so that meant the countdown was officially started. And in the month of July, I had so much to wrap up on the truck, so much to wrap up in my personal life, so much planning to do to get on the road. And there was no looking back. I couldn't go back. I didn't have a house anymore. And that meant I had to finish this. And we were getting on the road. So that hopefully sums up how we got here. It's been a long road. I've been thinking about this, like I said, for over a decade. But there have been a lot of curveballs along the way. And this final curveball that pushed me out the door and onto the road was honestly completely unexpected and quite shocking, and a big paradigm shift for me, honestly. Knowing that I wasn't going to have a job, knowing that paying rent in San Francisco was going to be extremely difficult, and taking the leap of faith to bet on myself to finish this truck and get moved into it. And hopefully that also sort of speaks to why the videos have been so sporadic. I think the last year at work, fighting through some of these macroeconomic situations and trying to figure out how you survive as a company doing some really awesome engineering work, took a ton of my focus. And it meant these videos sort of took a back burner. Obviously there was a lot of other stuff involved as well. Having a partner that really became solidified in this dream, being in the passenger seat, and then having that breakup take place also took its toll on things. So I don't know, I don't want to make excuses here, but there was a lot going on. It was pretty complex and completely unexpected to be doing this in 2023. I feel wholly unprepared for it. I would love to have been able to go slower on the build and really take my time to get it dialed in. But we're 10 days in and I'm loving it so far. So the dream that started this all off is the Pan American Highway. And that is sort of the goalpost that we're focused on right now. But more recently, I do think that even that dream is growing. I vocalized it for the first time just a couple weeks back as I was in the driveway working on the Troopy. An older couple from up the block stopped by to chit chat and they asked that question, what the heck are you doing with this thing? And it was the first time that I ever said, I'm building it to drive it around the world. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that as I'm learning more about myself, I'm realizing that I have just this craving for adventure and exploration and connecting with new people and new cultures and creating stories that are worth sharing to one day tell my grandkids or to share here on YouTube, what have you. I think that is a big motivator for this next chapter of my life. This is the first chapter of my life where I'm not beholden to the 9-to-5 responsibilities. I don't have to answer to anyone but myself and Bandit, and he's pretty easy to please. And it's also the first time in my life that I get to focus on content creation, which has always been a passion of mine, but one that has been on the back burner behind the 9-to-5 and the responsibilities of day-to-day life. And so I'm excited to see what comes of all of this. And I don't know what's gonna come of all this, is what I'm really trying to say. I'm gonna keep trying to share stories and to inspire and educate people to get out and explore the world around them. I'm going to keep trying to show people that if I can do it, anyone out there can. There's nothing special about me. So the dream that kicked this all off is the Pan American Highway. And while that dream may be growing and evolving and who knows what the future holds, I'll stick to painting in sort of the immediate future that I do know about. Right now I'm in Central Oregon in the Willamette National Forest, and the only date that is set in stone in the near future is August 19th. That's when me, Bandit, and the Troopy load onto the ferry to take the inside passage via the Alaska Marine Highway from Bellingham, Washington, up to Haines, Alaska. So once we get off the ferry in Haines, the plan is pretty loose, but there are a couple of overarching goals. And so this is an open call for help. If you've spent time up there, if you have done this leg of the journey, I would love to hear from you. You can drop any recommendations or comments down below, or you can DM me on Instagram. I'd love to hear from anyone who has experience here. But I think the couple of things that I'm targeting while I'm in Alaska are maximizing the good weather and using that good weather to explore via as much dirt as possible, via as many dispersed campsites as possible, and really just see everything that we can. And so my gut says that we get off in Haines, we probably get into Alaska proper via that little arm of the Yukon, and sort of, you know, it's a Denali, Anchorage, Fairbanks type loop. And then the second big goal is to hit the Arctic Ocean. And that will really check off the northernmost point of the Pan American Highway for us. And we've got two options up there in Alaska to do the Arctic Ocean. Prudhoe Bay is very common. It's basically just a big industrial oil refinery town. That's the only reason it exists, I'm pretty sure. And then the other option is via Tuktoyaktuk. And it's sort of 5 cents one way, a nickel the other. Both of the roads to get to either of these places are long dirt roads where your primary company on the road is going to be 18-wheelers hauling oil or some other industrial supplies. And so I'm still sort of split on which direction to go in. I'm leaning right now. My gut is saying that I want to hit the Arctic Ocean via Tuk. And then that will be a nice way to come back through Canada. So in terms of timeline here, really, we're loading up onto the ferry on the 19th. That puts us in Alaska in late August. I'm guessing you probably get until late September, maybe early October, really pushing it to get the good weather. It probably will start getting cold pretty soon, and we're trying to chase the good weather. So then you imagine hitting the Arctic Ocean and turning around, late September, early October, slowly going through BC and the Western US again. In the shoulder season, you're at that point into probably late October, early November. You're avoiding major snowfalls. You're going to the places that were too hot earlier to go to, and so there will be some exploration that way. And the really nice thing about this timeline is that it puts me back home right around the holidays to see friends and family. So that window from probably basically Thanksgiving to Christmas is going to be downtime, where I'll be able to make up for some of the rushed mistakes on the Troopy build. I'll be able to revisit and revise things that haven't been working, that I've learned about, that changes and modifications that this first phase of the journey really teaches me. I'll get some good downtime, probably 4 or 5 weeks, just to work on the truck and make sure I'm prepared for the next leg. And the next leg is really, in my mind, sort of the true first international leg, even though, you're going through Canada and stuff. But come January, my goal is going to be crossing over into Mexico via Baja. And then you're really into slow travel, maximizing the length of your visas, chasing good weather as much as possible. And so what that probably looks like is we work our way slowly down Baja to Baja Sur. We load onto the ferry into mainland Mexico. We spend 2 to 3 months in mainland Mexico, making our way south, and then get into Central America. And so all of that in 2024 is super loose and subject to change, but it basically looks like first half of 2024 in or around Mexico. And then we keep going south for as long as we can, for as long as we're enjoying it. As I've been thinking about an overall timeline for the Pan American Highway, my gut has sort of been saying somewhere on the 18 to 24 month time frame. I think it's what I can reasonably do based on my savings, even if I earn nothing from creating content and from sharing the trip with you all. I think I can do an 18-month trip, but I'm already watching the budget very closely because groceries and gas and everything is just more expensive than I think I had initially planned for. So it's a lot of cup of noodle and ramen type dinners. We're not eating steaks every night out here, I can guarantee you that. But who knows? If things go really well and the income is there to sustain longer travel, then you could imagine getting to Ushuaia in South America, and instead of turning around and coming back to the States, you might imagine shipping the truck to Europe or to Johannesburg or something like that, and starting a new leg of the voyage. The other thing that's a very real possibility here, because I just don't know what I'm getting into. We don't know what we're getting into. We've never done this type of long-term travel before. There's a real world where it doesn't jive with us, where we get up to Alaska, touch the Arctic Ocean, and then decide, I don't know if I've got another year of doing this in me. I think the chances of that happening are pretty slim. I think I'm pretty dead set on accomplishing this goal of doing the Pan American Highway, but you never know. And so I just want to be real about that. Life on the road is hard. It can feel lonely and isolating. I'm sure there will be challenges. I'm sure that 10 days in, we've seen nothing yet. We've been lucky with incredible campsites, with incredible people that we've met so far. But all of that could change at any point. And so taking the realist view of things, who knows? Maybe the trip that I'll be sharing with you all is just to Alaska and back. But the dream is to be sharing the entirety of the Pan American Highway with you. And the dream beyond that is to be sharing the entirety of a global expedition with you all. Well, hopefully that sheds a bit of light on how we got here, the absolute whirlwind of events that took me by surprise to lead to where we're at right now, as well as what we're planning on doing and trying to accomplish here. I've got a whole host of footage in the backlog from the Troopy build that I'd like to get through and start sharing with you. I've got a ton of plans for videos similar to this one, deep dives on the routing and planning process, the gear we're carrying, the truck, the build, everything in between, as well as sharing stories from the road and just the journey with you all. I'm so stoked to have you along for this ride, each and every single one of you that takes the time out of your day to watch these videos and to comment and to interact with it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And on that note, if you're new here and you like what we're doing, it is a huge help to give this video that thumbs up and consider subscribing and sticking around for a while, because I'd love to have you on this journey with me. So until next time, get out and explore somewhere.